Well, welcome back to the New Adam podcast. We are here today discussing raising kids. And we have Kent and Scott here to discuss it because the three of us feel old and we're going to now. Well, we look older than we feel. How about that? And sometimes we look in the mirror and I like that. Sometimes we're going, what happened? That's the age we find ourselves sometimes. But so I want to start letting you guys give you a chance to introduce yourselves, and then I have a question to get us rolling, which is, say publicly for the record the year you graduated high school.
Scott, you want to go first?
All right, yeah. So great to be with you guys today. Scott Mawdesley. I lead the Spiritual Fathers Initiative for Man in the Mirror, and I lead a local nonprofit called Dads on Tap that we created to help dads become better dads. So honored to be here. I'm a dad of a 20-year-old and a 15-year-old, a son and a daughter, so right in the thick of it.
What year?
Like you skipped the part about.
Okay, yeah, you sure introduce yourself first, Kent, and then.
No, I want you to go on record.
So yeah, I'll go right to my age. Okay, so I'm a 1991 graduate of Dade Christian School in Miami, Florida. Go Crusaders, man.
Man, nice. Ken Evans, I'll get the hard part out of the way first. 1988, class of 1988, so that makes me 55. April and I have been married about 30 years, a little over, and we have 5 sons. They're ages 26 down to 10, and one is married, one's about to get married, so we're kind of in that straddling season of life where we have 2 still at home, but 3 kind of out and pretty launched. And I lead Manhood Journey, a ministry that helps dads be disciple makers.
Awesome. Well, I can skip the question. No, I'm just kidding.
What?
Wow. Right.
Privilege. Trying to get out of it.
Yeah. I'm Ryan Reeves. I'm a senior editor and in charge of digital strategy for Man in the Mirror, and was a professor for a long time. And I do YouTube as well, my personal channel. I graduated in '96. So nice. I think I'm technically considered one of the. I've always had trouble. I'm either one of the last Gen X or one of the ancient millennials. I don't feel like a millennial. I don't act like one, but I don't quite get the Gen X kind of world either. I'm somewhere in the middle. So
there you go. Depending on the news of the day, you can claim more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pick your allegiance.
Exactly. I can pick my tribe. Yeah. Oh, y'all are cool. I like that part. Well, so 88, 91, 96. And I didn't say, but I'm raising kids as well. I have a 17-year-old daughter and then 2 sons, 14, and just turned 11. And so a lot's changed since those years and the years that we're raising our kids. One question that I always want to ask guys our age is, what were the assumptions in your head from wherever you got them? What were the assumptions in your head about what you needed to be a man and to be at least somewhat successful in life? What were the goals? What were I need to do this? Did you have any roadmap in your head when you were graduating high school?
Can't age before beauty, so you go right ahead.
Oh, wow. Well, back when I was a kid, it's interesting, Ryan. I'm not sure I would have a great answer to the question because it's like in the Lego movie when they say your mind is so prodigiously empty that there's nothing to build on. I don't think I had a lot of good assumptions, right? So I think mine was more blank canvas, probably had something to do with, getting married one day or maybe being a dad, although that wasn't like my primal framework. It wasn't like, I just want to be a godly young man. That wasn't my thought at all. Not when I was a late teen or college age guy. I did start to get guys who were mentors. So early when I was 17, I went through my mom and dad got divorced, and I went through this very formative year or so where I was counseled by a guy who told me to get around guys who had what I wanted. And that was the beginning of a lifelong journey of kind of pulling wisdom from older men. So I do think that was formative for me, but I didn't have a very structured framework on what it meant to be a man.
Yeah, I would say for me, similar to Ken, in that my family went through a lot of challenges. I had a single dad for a few years. My mom left, and we dealt with a lot of pain, a lot of mess. But I did have a very strong faith. In fact, our little local church in Michigan was the safest place in my life for many years, and we had a great pastor and some really great volunteers. And so from an early age, even in a season when my dad kind of I always say my dad was present but distant, right? So he was always there. We just never had deeper conversations of the heart. It was hard to get under the surface, but he was always there and for me. And so, I think from an early age, if it wouldn't have been for men pouring into me from an early age, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I don't know that I had a clear vision of what it meant to be a man, probably something around faith, right? You need to follow God and you need to be a good husband and a good father, but how you define that, and probably even more importantly, how you live that out in a practical way, I had to kind of figure that out as we went.
Yeah, it's funny because in many ways, all of our ministries are born out of this very common story of our generation, which is we had good dads, we had pain, there were some challenges, but there wasn't. It felt like an emptiness. Like, well, what now? What's the and you have guys who found the mentors that they needed, and quite a number that didn't. I'm one of the ones that quite didn't throughout those ages, where I'm going like, who's going to tell me that I've made it, and who's going to tell me watch out for that pothole, and those kinds of things. And it's not that my dad couldn't or wouldn't, but it wasn't his strong suit. But what I do remember very vividly were culture wars. We still fight them; they're not gone from our day to day. But did you guys have Christian homes? I think the answer is yes. It was somewhat. Did it feel like you were in the middle of a culture war where like your faith was embattled out there as much as maybe young men feel like it is today?
That's not what I felt. Meaning, and I'm careful to say my feelings are truth. That drives me batty when guys just go, well, here's what I felt. And all of a sudden what they feel is absolute truth. Like, let's be careful. But for me, no, I didn't grow up in a home that was engaged in some kind of culture war, right? We didn't have conversations about, well, this is how we do it. This is how the rest of the world does it. That never, ever came up in my home. We did.
No satanic panic.
No. And I think to some degree, at least again, one man's perspective, I grew up in a home that went to church occasionally. We went 2 or 3 times a year. So it wasn't that faith was the epicenter of our home. However, I would say the epicenter of our home was there is some version of right and wrong. Like I grew up knowing, to rob a bank is bad, to murder people is bad. And I don't know that I would say that was like faith driven, but there was an
Christian
ethic.
maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There was an ethic and a morality that at least had me rolling into my late teens and early 20s. I was like, there's a right and wrong, and I just got to figure out what it is.
Yeah, it's interesting because back in the day, even back in our day, I should say, even non-Christian parents still wanted to raise ethical kids. Like they still wanted them to behave good. Not that people don't today, but the tone has shifted so much to where now it's like, what's your lifestyle choice? And that could be just wildly different expressions of how you live your life. And we're supposed to that's okay. What about you, Scott? Did you have any culture war life in the world?
Interesting. I wouldn't say that Portage, Michigan was the epicenter of the culture clash, but I definitely grew up in a small independent Bible church that was independent fundamentalist, man. Like it's so fascinating because the only message series I ever remember as a kid was why Christian rock was of the devil. Not rock and roll, like Christian rock. The only reason I remember that because they played the music I liked in church, finally, as an example.
What was their argument? Why was it bad?
Oh, it's cultural beats and
we were mixing it together. Yeah,
like cowbell. It was too much cowbell.
Roots and the disco move. We're talking.
Yeah,
we could go a long way there. But the crazy part about it is that that didn't spill over for whatever reason into our home. My parents were not that. It just for some reason they seem to have a balance, and I think maybe because they had their own struggles and those things weren't as important. It was like make good decisions, don't drink, don't smoke, don't date girls that do right. I mean, there was some of that, but I never felt like I had to rebel in my home against anything. And the other thing I would say is, even though that was the nutty part of the church I grew up in, it was a church that cared for us. It was a church that cared for teenagers, right? Like I felt loved and I felt cared for. And so I think because of that, it was like, I I could deal with the culture war stuff because I know they care, you know?
Yeah, if they're crazy, but they're your family, like, it just works. Like, you just yeah. I was similar. My folks are Pentecostal, charismatic. Some was God, but where we live, there was no church that was to their liking. Very tiny town, and so they just went to the church with the best youth group, which was they in their mind, which was the First Presbyterian Church. We would holy roll on the weekends and then have this robed service with hymns on Sunday. I had a more no, I would say confused, but it made sense. So like, oh, those are the crazy cousins on the week over there, and these are the more formal type.
Ryan, your church was the one Scott's church told him to stay away from.
Yeah, right. So yeah,
Don't go to Ryan's church.
I have heard somebody did relate to me once that they were told she would sing before church or at church, and she was told that if you hold the mic, if you put your hand on it to sing it when it's on the mic stand, that's of the devil. So it was hands by your side, you love Jesus.
Everybody knows that.
If you're holding the mic, you love Satan. So
Such a fine line there. Such a fine line.
I mean, I had my, it was weird because I had this like strong culture of like, because that's Presbyterianism. They're like, you don't have to we're here to be salt and light, I guess is how I would say it. But then you have the Pentecostals, and I had my He-Mans thrown out because they were from the devil. So, but I don't recall being told to be on my guard when I went to school of the ideologies and the philosophies. I mean, teachers were still trusted to kind of keep their personal views to themselves. Already by 4th, 5th grade, I'm having to talk to my kid, not because they have had any issues, but I've had to be curious. What are your teachers teaching you? A lot's changed. And the other piece is that I don't know if there was as much pressure on us to figure out who we are and to try to fix the world's problems, if that makes sense. Like, I find young people are significantly right now burdened by the cares of the world, far more than I am. And I remember being aware of stuff when I was young, but I don't know. I don't know about your experiences, but my memories of childhood was I was just having fun and trying to grow up and trying to understand my faith a little bit. And all the cares of the world were kind of out there. Even when there was a war overseas or something, it didn't feel like it was right up on my doorstep. But it feels like the chaos has kind of come up on everyone's doorstep these days.
Well, I think to relate to that, Ryan, I think part of growing up in Canada, you got a lot of great ideas on this. I'm excited for you to jump in. It's some great thoughts. But, I mean, for us, I mean, it had to be like a national crisis for us to even know what was happening. I mean, I remember the space shuttle blowing up, right? And President Reagan getting shot. But outside of a couple of those things, man, like I had no idea what was really going on out there, right? It was like our little farm community. I kind of knew if there was something bad there, but other than that, I wasn't.
Nightly news would have some stuff, but you would just be like, oh.
Yeah, we didn't even watch that though, so
Well, and it's interesting, like your email yesterday, Ryan, in prep for today's show made me think about the ends of the spectrum I've lived on, and just one simple metaphor, which guys will laugh at this. Not metaphor, but life experience. I've lived long enough where the first way I used to navigate in a car on a road trip was you'd call up AAA, which a lot of people got to go chat GPT what that even means, but go ahead. You'd call up AAA and you'd get what was called a triptych. They would literally send you something in the mail. You'd go out to your mailbox and get this little booklet that had your trip turn by turn. You'd go 1 mile down this road, make a left, go 7 miles down that road, make a right. And depending on the distance, it would be a 5-page booklet or a 50-page booklet. If I'm going from here to California, it's a big book. True story, called the triptych. A few years ago, I happened to be in Berlin, Germany, and I needed to get to Leipzig to catch a 6 a.m. flight. And I had my iPhone with me. I didn't have a map. I can't speak German, but I made a 90-minute trip in the middle of Germany just using my iPhone. And I didn't even hesitate to go book a car and start driving down roads I couldn't pronounce. And that's just hilarious. Like when you look at my lifetime, that's the distance I've traveled, both metaphorically and literally.
Yeah, absolutely. I keep having these moments where and it's not, the more obvious stuff like AI or self-driving cars. It's literally what we're doing right now. Like, 12 years ago when I was making YouTube videos, the idea that three people could be in three different cities, at three different locations at least, and doing all this high quality stuff, just all these little moments where I'm like, my dishwasher is smart now, like it's just all this stuff, and I
'Cause it wasn't very smart before it was you. Is that what you're saying? Just
yeah, it was user problems, yeah, exactly. But and it just all feels so fast, is what's happening, and it's not a bleak picture. It's just part of it is this is what happens when you get a little older. This stuff, that's coming up behind you feels like it's all very sudden. But even for my kids, it feels sudden. Let me give an example. When we were growing up, of course, we had all the same dumb slang words and lingo that kids today make up. I love to tease my kids about all the slang I see on social media that they say now, and they hate it. No cap, Riz, all the things, and we had those too. I mean, we had phrases and things that we heard in pop culture, and we've heard. What's interesting though is our phrases would stick around for years. We would say them like for the entirety of high school, like something from a movie or like an Austin Powers quote. I remember in college was I forget which one, but we would always say it. But kids now, it lasts like months, if not just weeks.
Yeah.
Everything churns over. That's lame now. It's good. It's lame. It's good. It's lame. And there's like this, I almost feel like there's no wonder that everyone's complaining about anxiety today with all these changes that are happening.
Well, what I find interesting, and Scott, you touched on it a minute ago, is, and this is the point in the show where I offend most people, and then you guys argue with me for the next 15 minutes. Fine. I don't care. We don't have an onslaught of information coming at us. We have an onslaught of information we choose to go consume. The end. Right. And here's, and I know a lot of guys are like, oh, I got to make my living on. No, you don't. You're not an influencer. Give me a break. You are not. Yep. Your income is not driven by your social media follower base. Your interest levels are driven by that. So you go out and consume. For me, to Scott's point, yeah, like the shuttle blowing up, Reagan being shot, a few other things in my childhood. Even now, people, my wife and I joke about our response to people when they say something in the news that you can tell by the way they say it. We kind of should know what's going on. And it basically goes like this. Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? Tell me what you think about it. Because I don't have any idea what they're talking about other than major news events. I am intentionally ostrich in terms of social media. Mm-hmm. I'm not on some campaign or crusade to cancel social media. What I'm saying is, let's just be honest. The reason information is flooding at you is because you choose to have it flood at you. Mm. You're not walking down the street and someone assaults you with an iPhone and shoves the videos in your face for an hour. Mm. No, you do that all by yourself at 11 o'clock at night. And so for me, it's a temptation. It's a temptation, no question. I've been on my couch before, checking my fantasy football scores, watching my two boys play in the hallway, and then going, what am I doing? What in the world am I doing? Wasting away their 10 and 14-year-old years on a stupid fantasy football app. And then it'll catch me, and I put the phone down, and I'm back in the game. But it's not because social media is so aggressive. It's because our hearts are bent toward things that they're not supposed to have, or time wasted. And I just am, a bit like John the Baptist. I'm a voice crying in the social media wilderness.
I don't want to argue with you on that. It just immediately called to mind the Pharisees arguing about what food goes into you that makes you sick. They're all trying to get makes you unholy, I should say. And Jesus is like, it's what comes out of you. It's your heart chooses to consume and to be what it is. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's good. And Ken, I'm similar to you in the news side of things. I stopped watching any news. I mean, it's been a good almost probably 14 years ago now. It's just like I just can't put all that in, right? Like I used to joke. My mother-in-law is with the Lord now, but I used to joke because she was a heavy Fox News person. And man, I'm like, I would tell her, man, one person in 3 billion gets attacked by a lion in Africa, and I've got to hear about it, right? And I've got to worry about it, right? I mean, we used to have fun with that, but I stopped doing that. I am on social. But I do, to Kent's point, man, I have the most boring feed. I really don't get any type of because I don't go consume the crazy stuff or look for all the conspiracy theories or whatever. I mean, It's more about the voice I can have to a constituency than it is me consuming a lot of it, so.
Things are changing, though. Here's my concern, my reflection. It's not a concern. The stuff with Charlie Kirk just happened, and that I didn't watch a lot of any of that stuff like you guys. I think this is just our generation. We're like, why? Like I keep trying to describe it to my boys. I'm like, listen, this one guy named Kurt Cobain wore his hair in his face and sang like he was depressed, even though he's a millionaire and the most famous person in the world. And we all loved it. Like, we thought it was awesome. I was like, we want to say whatever and push away from all of that stuff. And they're like, oh, because my son wants to push in and get to know stuff. But since the Charlie thing, I've started to post more videos on my YouTube channel. Here's what I've noticed in just little anecdotal stuff. People are more hungry for truth and to get out of this gray, murky, every opinion matters, and particularly with young men. And I'll post a video that I think is on some obscure topic in church history, just because I like telling those stories. And these guys get into this argument about, well, is Jesus fully God? And they're like going into all this apologetic stuff, and it feels different. Because I used to post 12 years ago, and people would be more like, guys, why are we arguing? Like, let's just get along. It isn't just going to church more important? Like, I would get that pushback. Now I'm getting like, hey, Ryan, what do you believe? Where do you stand on these things? Stop being so soft. And it might just be a temporary turn, but in terms of our engagement with younger men in ministry, the call to discipline and shoot straight with me, boy, is bubbling up from youth right now.
Well, and I think we've seen the trend over the last 30, 40 years in fatherless homes, for example. Just use that as one, trend marker, where if you go back about 60 years, 1 out of every 9 or 10 kids grew up in a home with no dad. Now in America, it's 1 out of 3, and it doesn't look like it's slowing yet. So you look at it and go, wow. So I find a lot of guys in their 20s who do want to be mentored. Like, they actually do. They do want to have some guidance. Now, what's fascinating is the things we used to mentor them on, you can now get for free on YouTube and ChatGPT, right? So I don't need to teach you how to tie a bow tie or how to change the oil in your car. Frankly, you and me both would be pulling up the YouTube video. We'd be watching it out.
I did this 2 weeks ago for my son for homecoming. Yep.
But what's interesting to me is 40, 50, 60-year-old dads, for example, just use them as an audience. You can either gripe about that and go, oh, kids today, or you can go, wait a minute. So if I don't need to teach them to do a bow tie, that means that when I do have time with them, we can do other more interesting things with that time. Whether that's physical activity, right? We're going to build something or throw a ball or whatever, it might be fun, or address deeper questions that are more interesting. Why tell you about how to tie a bow tie when, frankly, what you need to learn how to do is stay pure with your fiance until your wedding day? Let's talk about that. Let's have that conversation instead of the conversation about, where to go print your invitations.
Ken, I love that idea. And with this thought, I think about a group of young men that I've been a part of, a mentoring group that we launched through our Chamber of Commerce. And when we got ready to launch this, it's a group of business guys that are older guys that said, we want to invest in the young guys in our community. We got ready to launch it. One of the guys in our group came in with a list of 24 young guys. And he said, guys, I have this list of 24 young guys. We're talking most of our mid-20s to mid-30s. That's the age range. And he said, any one of these 24 guys would almost drop everything to have a cup of coffee with any man in this room. He said, the reason is because they see you as business leaders in the community. They look up to you, and you have something they want. And that's one of the things that I think, Ryan, when you're putting that stuff out there, you have something those guys want, right? It's like, man, I'm gravitating towards that. And actually, I'll just jump in here. We just launched a brand new initiative this week in partnership with Kent and Manhood Journey that really is kind of a riff on this, Kent, of helping young men who want to have influence or who need the influence in their life, of helping them understand more about how to go find it, right?
Yeah.
The 20 young guys that have participated in our monthly mentoring group this year have found something in the group that started with business success. But the number one feedback they've given is the best part of our group is hearing these older guys talk about their faith and how it relates to the work they're doing in business and life. And that's been kind of the aha for them. So Ken, I don't know if you want to talk a little more about this Iron Shackles initiative, what we're doing.
Yeah, tell me about that.
If we go there.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, tell them all ears. I want to hear more.
Well, the foundational principle is that you can start with mentors who want to find proteges, which is not a bad place to start. Or you can also start with proteges who want to find mentors. Like it can be top down or bottom up. And it's not one versus the other. I think those work great when they're working in tandem. What we decided to do is make this a bottom up initiative. So for example, if you're 25 or 30 and you have an area of life where you're like, man, I'd love to get better at, and let's go back, not better at changing the oil in your car or better at, things you could learn easily on YouTube. You want to be a better manager of your money, or you want to be someone who is in better shape physically, or you want to be someone who has stronger relationships around you, whether that's friends, wife, kids, whatever, wherever you might be in your life stage. You have choices about how you go and learn those things. And one of the things that Scripture would tell us, now this is, again, if you are a Christian, if you like the Bible, or, we can debate that later, I suppose. But from my vantage point, we get a lot of instruction in Scripture about younger men learning from wiser men. In some cases, we call that younger and older, but I like to use the phrase younger and wiser because, frankly, there's 29-year-old YouTubers who could teach me a ton about digital marketing. It's not an age thing. It's not that I'm looking for older men. I'm looking for wiser men. And for me, if you want to find wiser men, you've never lived in an era where that was easier to do. Like one of the guys who is a mentor of mine, I'm holding up my Iron Circle worksheet. One of the guys who is a mentor of mine, John B., who I have in my leadership growth category, and I also have in my ministry strategy category, lives 2,000 miles away, and I've been in the room with him once in 3 years. We spend all of our time on Zoom calls. It's never been easier for you to pull guys in on the play and learn from those men. And what it requires is just two things. You got to acknowledge where you want to grow. And then you got to have an ounce of humility, being able to walk up to a guy and go, "Hey, Ryan, you know a lot about writing that you've probably forgotten more about writing than I've ever learned. Would you teach me what you know about writing?" And there's something that happens when you learn it from another guy that doesn't happen when you learn it on YouTube or ChatGPT.
Did you know that you cannot propel your own boat? Meaning, if you have a large vessel, like let's say a canoe, and you have a sail on one side and a giant fan on the other, and you're blowing towards the sail, it will not move. And it's Newton's first law of thermodynamics, which is forces contrast. So the same force that's blowing the sail is pushing the fan the opposite direction. So you have a big, windy, going nowhere boat. Meaning, the only way that boat moves is from an outside force, an outside wind blowing on it, pushing on it, giving it direction from the outside in. You cannot propel your own boat. And so men always have to be finding these ways to draw from outside of themselves.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
Oh, go ahead, Ken.
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, it's interesting too about where this is a huge difference today, Ryan. I watch it in my kids, where our youth turn first, right? So it's not unlikely that my son might go Google something if he's looking for an answer, or might, has played around a little bit with Chat GPT but he, at his college where he's at, he works in the student center, and he's one of the guys that gives tours to leaders coming to town. And man, he has given some tours to some amazing leaders. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, at the end, did you like those guys?" "Yeah, they were great. A lot of wisdom." "Yeah." I said, "Did you happen to ask him if you could follow up with an email or a phone call?" And he's like, "Nah, I never thought about it." And I thought, for a young guy, it's easy to think about grab Chat GPT or Google something. But man, you got opportunity to engage with someone. And if you'll be aware of it, I promise you, if you said, "Hey, can I get your email? I'd like to email you, maybe grab a coffee or something," that guy's not going to say no,
Yeah.
But it's a bit of a mind shift for a lot of the young generation.
Yeah, I've been going through Proverbs with my middle son. He's starting high school. And it's amazing. I was like, I don't have to teach you anything, buddy. I just got to read you this. And I said, there's more to read in the Bible, but This is a good place to start. And the other day, we were reading through stuff, and it was talking about it was like seeking wise counsel, something like that was mentioned. And I just looked at him and I said, Dumbledore and Gandalf aren't coming. You're not going to find the one mentor. There's no one mentor to rule them all that has everything on lockdown other than Jesus. But he sends fragmented, normal guys that are really good at some things. And I said, you need to find, I want to be a good dad. Well, hang out with good dads. They may stink at other things. But in fact, I'm sure they do. But if they're good at being a dad, hang out with them and pull that into your life. Let that wind blow into your life. Yeah.
Well, and just as situationally observant, right? So what I mean by that is I had a boss one time named Frank, and Frank was my boss for 3 or 4 years, and I learned a ton from him about selling, about management, about business. The first time I ever built a P&L statement was when Frank taught me how to build a P&L statement. And what Frank could do is he could catch me in the moment, both right and wrong, right? And he was good at both. He wasn't just a source of constant correction. But I remember one time getting in the car with Frank, and a third guy was getting in the car, and I just lit into this third guy. And several weeks later at lunch, Frank goes, "Hey, remember when we were in the car a few weeks ago?" And Frank could take that moment that he was situationally observant about and pour into my life, because I had treated this guy like a jerk. I was hateful. I was arrogant. I was, out of line. And because Frank could observe that in real time, he could mentor me in a way where I wouldn't have gone to my Friday morning accountability group and said, "Hey guys, boy, Tuesday, I was really a jerk to a guy in a car. I didn't even notice. And having a guy in my life who was walking alongside me at work, he could notice those. He also noticed a lot of things I did right and would pull me aside and say, "Hey, great job leading that meeting today. You really got us to the right place." Like, he did both really well.
Yeah. So one thing that this does raise in relationship to ministry today is what ways. So you talked about the bottom up approach. How do we link that eventually to guys that are mentors? Let's say, for example, a guy says, "Well, I can't find somebody." I'm a little, I'm myself, I'm a little suspicious of that. Maybe you just don't know enough guys yet. We need to broaden that out. But I have heard enough young guys saying, "I keep looking and I can't find them." And Iron Circle, what it sounds like, is in part trying to bridge that gap for guys that don't have that. But what do you say to a young guy who says, "Well, where do I go find somebody?" Like, all the old guys seem a little standoffish or whatever.
Yeah, well, I would say the first thing is what I think standoffish is one side. And that's a little different than can't find them, right? If you can find them but they're standoffish, that's one issue. But can't find them, I would say, where are you looking, right? Like, you're spending time somewhere. When I look back on where I have invested time and energy, I mean, being a part of a local body of believers has been a huge place for me to find older men that I looked up to, I could get time with. There are things that happen in the community. I mean, it's rare for me to go to a chamber breakfast or something and not run into somebody that I'm like, "Hey, we need to grab some time together," or meet somebody new, right? I mean, there are still places in our communities that are filled with guys that have great life experience, that are doing interesting things. And so I think the first thing I would say is, where are you investing your time? And if you're not investing your time in places that are kind of target rich, right, with some older guys that you can look up to, go find those kind of places, and I don't know where we find a list of those, but I don't think it should be too hard to go out and find. Kent, what are your thoughts on that?
Man, a couple quick things. One, if you're that guy, I recommend always start with the areas where you want to grow rather than start looking for mentors. And the reason is twofold. One, if I know, this is a simple example, and it's not a very good one, but it's tangible. If I know I want to be a better golfer, let's just use that as an example. I don't recommend you set that as your life objective unless you're going on the tour, but still, let's just say you want to be a better golfer. And you say to yourself, "I want to get better at golf." All of a sudden, one Sunday, you're going to go to church, and that dude you sit next to happens to be wearing an Augusta National golf shirt. He actually wears it every Sunday, hoping someone will ask him about the time he played Augusta. Like, he wears it all the time, but you never noticed it. Why? Because your brain hadn't told yourself, "Hey man, notice the golfers around you." But now that you do, voila, golfers come out of the woodwork. Now, that's a silly example, but The point remains. It's your reticular activating system. It's the part of your brain that tells you what to ignore, what to notice. Trick your brain into noticing, guys, by first starting with, how do you want to grow? How do you want to grow? Here, another example. If you want to become a better money manager, for example, let's get a little closer to home, probably a little more strategic. Here's what you're going to notice. 2 weeks ago, I'm at lunch with a guy who happened to open his wallet to pay for something, and there were 15 or 20 $100 bills in his wallet. Now, I know this guy fairly well, right? I've stayed in 3 of his homes. Anyway, so here's what I know about this guy. Actually, it's like my basketball level of skill and LeBron James' basketball level of skill. That's the comparison between me and this guy. But I notice things about his economic situation because often when we're together, I'm asking him questions about economics and finances. I remember calling him one time and saying, hey, man, should I invest in this home in Costa Rica? And he's a real quiet guy. And he just goes, you still got a mortgage? And I said, yeah. He goes, oh. And I go, really? And he goes, absolutely. Don't risk the roof you live under for another one. All right, what else? What time you want to go to lunch tomorrow? Like it was simple, easy. Okay, so that's part one. Part two, and part two, your posture. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, every man I meet is in some way my superior. And in that, I endeavor to learn. Dale Carnegie requoted it in the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Bottom line is, every single person you meet has something to teach you. The way Dale Carnegie said it in How to Win Friends was, if he became homeless, he would need to go learn how to be homeless from a homeless guy because he was so rich, he had no clue how to be homeless. Great point. Great point. And so a lot of guys, you meet them, right? And all they are interested in doing for about 5 minutes is telling you their LinkedIn profile while you stand there and listen. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. Well, I went and I traveled and I wrote and I'm book. Oh my word, bro, back it up. Guess what? Replace all your comments with a few smart questions. And what you're going to find is the dude sitting across from you probably has a lot to share. And it's a posture. It's an attitude. It's not that guys can't find them. It's they're too busy spouting their LinkedIn profile to notice.
Yeah, that's great, man. And I'd also say when you find them, have some, I don't know, a better way to say it than stick-to-itiveness. So I'll give you an example. Literally, I looked down at my desk here. I'm at coffee a month ago, and this guy is sitting at the table next to us. And over here is a part of our conversation. He goes, hey, excuse me, I heard this. And so we ended up, 4 of us got up. We ended up having about a 10-minute conversation. I asked for his card. I sent him because a guy, the former state senator, like really interesting dude. And I sent him an email that day, and he's like, hey, I'm busy, like probably not available for another month and a half. Well, the average person's probably going to forget about it, right? But guess what I'm doing a month and a half later? This is sitting on my desk. I'm going to email him again and go, hey, it's a month and a half later. Can we get some time, right? And that stick-to-itiveness to not give up on the first try or to remember something over time is huge for making a connection.
Man, I put those things in my calendar, Scott. Like where a guy will say to me, hey, I'm traveling. I'm going to be out of the country, for X amount of time. And I go, how long, or whatever. And they'll go, well, I won't be free till the end of November. Awesome. November 30th. What I do, here's my habit, just in case this is a life hack for anybody. I wouldn't put that between 8 and noon or 1 and 5 because I have a bunch of stuff that'll crowd it out. I put it at lunchtime. And I literally put it at lunchtime, touch base with Ryan at Man in the Mirror. He just went to Germany. And then I'll forget Ryan, for 6-7 weeks, but then I'll see that calendar appointment and I'll email Ryan and go, hey, Ryan, hope your trip to Germany was great. Still looking for that cup of coffee. And he goes, wow. And I am 1 out of 100. 99 people won't remember he was out of the country. They won't remember what country he went to. And frankly, neither would I. So I put it in my calendar so I don't forget. And I'll put, ask Ryan about Germany, grab a cup of coffee. And it's like, use the calendar to help you be consistent.
Well, I'm off to Germany. So
perfect time of year. It's October.
It is Oktoberfest. I lived in Germany for a year studying, and that's the one thing. I went to Oktoberfest briefly, but it's like trying to go to Disney in July. Like there's no way to go there.
Well, you can always come to Helen, Georgia, Brian. They have a little Oktoberfest at the German town of Helen, Georgia. a little
Did a bunch of
I don't think that's real, Ryan. I don't think you should go. I don't think that's
did
real.
a bunch of Germans land there? Why was
Yes,
that?
I did.
They just
It literally looks like a German village, man. It's awesome.
That's funny.